everyone, ready to dive into a future where tech could completely transform how our democracies work?
Sounds intense.
It is. We're talking blockchain, AI, the whole shebang, and how it all connects to power, guided by Dario de Oliveira Rodriguez's book, Digital Decentralization.
Okay, so where do we even start with something that big?
Rodriguez makes this fascinating point that to get where we're going, we gotta look back, way back, to the history of money, believe it or not.
Money. I thought we were talking about voting and stuff.
I hear you, but stick with me. It all ties together. So, picture this. The Yap Islands, out in the Pacific, they use these giant stone discs as currency. Fei. Some bigger than houses.
Wait, seriously, you can't be serious. Bigger than a house.
No, I'm serious. Obviously not exactly pocket change, but the point is, everyone knew who owned which stone, even if they never moved them. It was about shared knowledge, trust.
Okay, so like a prehistoric ledger system or something.
Exactly, like a prehistoric blockchain almost. Everyone's memory acted as this public record. And that, recording things securely and transparently, well, that's what blockchain aims to do digitally, but on a global scale now.
Right, blockchain, everyone throws that word around, but what actually is it?
Imagine a digital ledger, but instead of one bank controlling it, it's copied on countless computers, impossible to mess with. Every transaction is like a new block added to the chain, visible to everyone.
So instead of one big authority, it's this network that builds trust. That's got to have huge implications, not just for money, but for how we govern, how much control we have over our own information.
And that brings up what Rodriguez calls the big ethical dilemma of this tech revolution. On one hand, you've got cryptocurrencies all about that decentralization, giving individuals more power. But then you've got this rise of central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs for short.
And those don't exactly scream freedom, do they?
No, not exactly.
Yeah.
CBDCs could give governments a crazy amount of control over our finances. Imagine every purchase, every cent you send, tracked and monitored.
That sounds a little too Black Mirror for my liking.
And the scary part is it's already happening. Look at China's digital yuan. It's a real-world example of a centralized digital currency. So we've got this potential big brother scenario with CBDCs. But let's shift gears a little and talk about how this digital revolution could actually impact you, the listener, in your daily life. Rodriguez gets into some really fascinating specifics.
Okay, yeah, bring it down to earth a bit.
Right. What really struck me is how these technologies, especially blockchain and AI together, could change huge things like healthcare and education. I mean, we're talking fundamental stuff here.
Okay, so like, what would that even look like? Robot doctors.
Well, not quite robots, but imagine a world where you've got total control over your own medical data. You decide who sees it, and get this, you could even potentially make money off it.
Seriously? How? By selling my health data to, like, the highest bidder?
It's not quite that simple. The book explores how your medical records, genetic information, it all becomes this valuable asset that you control. Drug companies could pay you for access, anonymously, of course, for research.
So, no more shady data brokers making bank off our information. I can get behind that.
Yeah.
But what about AI? Where does that fit into all of this?
That's where things get really interesting. With AI analyzing these massive data sets, we could be looking at truly personalized medicine. Think early disease detection, treatments tailored to your genes, the whole 9 yards.
That sounds amazing. Sign me up. What about education, though? You mentioned that earlier.
Right. Rodriguez paints this picture of a world where your academic credentials are completely secure, instantly verifiable, even transferable across borders.
Wow. No more digging around for old transcripts. That'd be life-changing. So blockchain would be like a global verification system.
Exactly. It'd be huge for anyone who's studied abroad or is trying to break into a new field. And imagine this. AI personalizing learning experiences tailored to your pace, your style.
No more one-size-fits-all classrooms. I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
But what happens to teachers in this future? Does AI make them obsolete?
That's a good question. But Rodriguez emphasizes that AI isn't about replacing teachers. It's about giving them better tools, freeing them from admin stuff so they can actually guide and mentor students.
So augmenting human capabilities, not making us redundant? I like it.
Exactly. And this idea of empowerment extends to other areas, too. Rodriguez even talks about how our homes could become these mini power plants.
Okay, now you're just messing with me, right? Mini power plants.
No, seriously. He argues that blockchain could enable a decentralized energy grid. Imagine buying and selling renewable energy directly from each other, cutting out the big energy companies completely.
Okay, I'm listening. A more democratic, sustainable energy future. Tell me more.
Picture this. Solar panels everywhere, turning everyday people into energy producers. And blockchain is the key, facilitating these secure, transparent energy transactions, even on a small scale. Your electric car charging overnight from your neighbor's solar panels, all managed seamlessly through blockchain.
Wow, it's like the sharing economy, but for energy. I love it.
Exactly. And with AI optimizing energy distribution, we could have a grid that's not just greener, but more efficient and resilient.
Okay, you've convinced me. Sign me up for this solar-powered future. But we haven't even touched on what might be the most important application of all, governance.
And that's where things get really interesting. We're talking about the potential for blockchain and AI to completely revolutionize democracy itself.
So are we talking about saying goodbye to rigged elections and hello to a system where every vote actually matters?
That's the big idea, right? Blockchain could create a voting system that's basically tamper-proof, where every vote is securely recorded and easily verifiable.
Imagine that. Elections where we can actually trust the results. Especially these days, when trust in institutions is so low.
Exactly. And where AI comes in is it can analyze huge amounts of data to identify and prevent things like voter suppression. It could even personalize voter outreach based on individual issues.
That sounds great, but couldn't that also give an advantage to campaigns with more data, more resources?
That's a valid concern for sure. And that's exactly why Rodriguez emphasizes how important it is to develop and use AI ethically. It's not enough to have the tech. It's about making sure it's used to actually strengthen democracy, not weaken it.
So responsible implementation is key, as always. It's not technology versus humanity. It's about figuring out how to use these tools to create the future we want.
Exactly. And that's a conversation we need to be having now. We can't just sit back and let tech dictate how our future unfolds.
Right. We need to be proactive, not reactive. Okay, but this all sounds great for those who still have jobs in this new world. What about the people who lose their jobs because of AI, automation, all that? What happens to them?
That's another huge issue, and Rodriguez doesn't shy away from it. He suggests things like universal basic income, UBI, as a way to provide a safety net for people who are displaced by AI-driven job losses.
UBI, that's a whole other conversation, isn't it?
Yeah.
How do you even make sure something like that is implemented fairly and securely? I could easily see AI being used to manipulate that kind of system.
It's definitely not without its challenges, but this is where Rodriguez brings up the idea of proof of personhood. He explains how you could use advanced cryptography to verify someone's identity, but without revealing any personal information.
So like a digital ID, but with privacy built in. I'm intrigued, but also a little wary.
I hear you. It's definitely a fascinating and maybe a little unnerving solution to a very real problem, and that's what I appreciate about digital decentralization. It pushes us to think critically about the future, about both the utopian and dystopian possibilities of this tech.
It's a lot to unpack, for sure.
It is a lot to unpack, and it's easy to get caught up in all the exciting stuff, but like with any powerful tool, there's always that risk of things going wrong. Rodriguez definitely doesn't shy away from that.
Right. We've touched on some potential downsides, but what are some specific concerns he brings up? Could this actually lead to more centralized control, not less?
That's the big question, right? And Rodriguez acknowledges that, these technologies could be used to create systems even more centralized, even more oppressive than what we've got now.
Like we're walking a tightrope between progress and, well, potential disaster.
Exactly. And one of the biggest risks he talks about is these technologies being used by governments, corporations to monitor and control people on a scale we can't even imagine right now.
That whole surveillance state, fear, but amplified. Every move you make, online, offline, tracked, analyzed, used against you.
It's not that far-fetched, unfortunately. We talked about CBDCs, but imagine that level of control spreading to other parts of our lives. And don't forget AI bias. If those algorithms are trained on biased data, they won't magically fix inequality, they'll make it worse.
So instead of personalized medicine and education, we end up with systems that just reinforce existing discrimination. That's a pretty bleak thought.
It is. And then there's the question of these technologies being weaponized by governments, by bad actors. The potential for misuse is huge.
It's like we could create a more peaceful world, but also make conflict more likely, more destructive. Cyber attacks, disinformation, even AI-powered weapons. It's a scary thought.
And that's why Rodriguez emphasizes this. Technology, it's just a tool. It's not inherently good or bad. It's how we use it that matters. We get to decide that.
So it's not technology versus humanity, but more like, what kind of future do we want? Are we willing to ask the tough questions, set boundaries, make sure these tools are used for good?
Exactly. We need open, honest conversations about the risks, the safeguards we need to put in place. The future isn't set in stone. It's shaped by the choices we make right now.
And those choices feel more important than ever. We're talking about democracy, freedom, what it means to be human in a world with AI. It's a lot.
It is. But knowledge is power, right?
Okay.
The more we understand these technologies, the better equipped we are to deal with the challenges, but also the incredible opportunities they offer.
Which is why I think this book, Digital Decentralization, is so important. It's not always an easy read, but it's crucial for anyone who wants to understand what's at stake right now.
Absolutely. And if this conversation has piqued your interest, don't stop here. Read the book, do your own research, talk to people, and most importantly, ask questions. The future of our digital world is being written right now, and we all have a say in how that story unfolds.
That's a great point to end on. It's been a fascinating discussion. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us, and thanks to all of you for listening. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep shaping the future.